perspective of Chief Bromden, who is a patient who's kind of been there for a while, but like he doesn't talk, so like people think that he is deaf and mute. So people will maybe say things around him that they don't think would matter because they don't think that he can hear him, but he really actually knows a lot more about everyone. So he can. That's why he's like a really good narrator, because he can just like watch and without being totally involved.
Yeah, everything's from his point of view. Very interesting. It's an interesting way to write a book.
The Catcher in the Rye looks at depression specifically through a very personal lens and kind of shows you a lot of personal experiences with it because it's all narrated by Holden, and it's kind of like, here's what Holden's thinking, here's how Holden's feeling. And something you notice about Holden is he never really says what he means. Like, he has this big thing about hating people who are phony and like people who aren't really themselves. But really early on in the book, he even says himself, I'll lie about anything. If I'm going to the store, I'll tell him I'm going to the opera for no reason at all. And he admits it's a problem, but he still has this huge bias against like phony people and people who are fake. But I think that's him reflecting upon the fact that he has an issue with how he acts, so he takes it out on other people.
The situation in the book, they talk about it like it's very stigmatized and like there's not that much like research on it, and it's kind of just trying to get them to submit and stuff. But I feel like the author writing this book kind of serves as a purpose to like bring awareness that like this that needed to change at the time, even though it was like came out later after the fact. Like it still just brings awareness to how it actually was and what people went through and how far we've come and how far we need to go, kind of, even though it doesn't like explicitly really say that in the book. That's kind of what I see.
It's a lot of patients with mental illnesses in a ward, but they never specifically tell you what they're suffering with.
Yeah.
I mean, they point out that a couple of the patients have seizures and they get specific medication for that, but like overall, they all get the same treatments and the same medications to help with these many different problems, which isn't how it should be. One treatment could help somebody a lot, and it could
hurt somebody else.
Something else I noticed about Holden is his actions seem very complex and often contradicting. A lot of times he brings up like his sexuality and talking about how sex is really disgusting to him and like how he doesn't like it, and he said at one point, I have no business learning about it and stuff. But then like directly after that, he called up like a prostitute and he's like trying to get her to have sex with him. It's like he wants to feel something from these things, but he can't, so he just says he hates them. That's what I personally take it as.
Yeah, so that, like, I don't know, that kind of makes me think of McMurphy and how I feel like it's kind of opposite with the way he acts with what he wants or feels, because I feel like he kind of just says whatever he wants. Like, he's not going to hide what he wants, even if it's going to cause issues with, like, the nurse or other patients, and so we don't see inside of his head, so we don't really get a inside perspective like in your book.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very out there character who does a lot of rash things just to win bets and whatnot. He's a gambler, for sure. I mean, he states that many times in the book. He's like, I'm a gambling man and I always win.
He so with your character, I think it's interesting how like he like can see the other side, like both sides of like this disgusts me or then it doesn't disgust him or whatever. But then with ours, it's just I feel like it's all kind of like one-sided mostly when people are like acting and talking about their own mental issues.
Because like all we see it through is what Chief Bromden is thinking, and he's like trying to figure out why McMurphy's acting this way and why he does the things he does, but we can't like know why unless we like really want to get into it and analyze it.
Another aspect The Catcher in the Rye shows is how mental illness can be really destructive in ways, because Holden had this great relationship with his dorm mate. His name was Stradlater, and he's like this really nice, charming, handsome guy, and like they get along well. And so one night, Chandler goes out with Holden's crush, actually. And the same night, he asks him to write a paper for him because he's going out to do that. And Holden writes about his brother who passed away. He writes about his baseball mitt and describes it because it's supposed to be a descriptive essay. And so he writes about it, and then when Shad later gets back from the date, he just hates it and he trashes it, and that upsets Holden a lot. And they get in this huge like fight, and they start like physically fighting, and it just escalates so quickly. I think because I think Holden at the time was going through a depressive episode because he started writing about that, and it kind of triggered it. And then when Stradlater got back, it just all kind of exploded because right after that fight, he decided to leave that school altogether and just go out in the city and try to find his way. And I think that was just a big turning point because it shows like how impulsive he can be when he gets depressed and like how serious his decisions are altered by it. Had a casual, nice conversation, and he was smoking at the time, and he accidentally blew smoke in their face, and he felt really bad, and he like apologized a bunch. And I just noticed that because that the author can have those moments, so it doesn't look like Holden's always going to be rude and arrogant, and like because that's not how mental illness is. You know, like it's not just some constant thing where you're always off. Like
it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
Have a problem, we want everyone to talk about it, or go seek help somewhere. It's like there's a stigma around therapy, and like if you go, like, oh God, you are totally messed up in the head and whatnot, which isn't how it should be because it genuinely helps people, especially if you find the right therapist.
Accepting your problems and trying to actively help yourself is like one of the, like, for a lot of people, it's one of the best ways you can help yourself because if you're not trying, like, how it's kind of hard for it to work.